Now, let's listen to Talker final video here.
Many in federal law enforcement knew perfectly well there was going to be a huge demonstration in Washington on the afternoon of January 6, 2021, and that it could become potentially violent. There is no debate about that fact. The FBI knew. But it's also clear that many on the U.S. Capitol Police Force, the frontline officers who protect the Congress, did not know. They had no idea what was coming. And because they didn't know, they were completely unprepared for what happened that day. That is a very strange failure of communication, and it has never been explained. To understand more about the response to January 6th inside the Capitol, we sat down with a man called Tarek Johnson. Johnson served as a Capitol Hill police officer for 22 years. On the day of the protests, he says he was responsible for securing the certification of the presidential election. If there is anyone at the very heart of the January 6th story, it's former Capitol Police Lieutenant Tarek Johnson. And yet, for some reason, the January 6th committee never called him to testify.
My voice was one of the first ones you hear on the audio transmission, so I did expect to get an interview at some time, but no, it didn't happen. I guess the focus was on Donald Trump.
According to Johnson, no one answered his numerous pleas for help.
Did you guys remember Johnson as being part of the narrative that was being said? Do you remember this guy? I don't remember a thing about the man. But he is such a key figure to the entire story because he is the one calling the shots. He made the decisions to evacuate the staff members. So this man was crucial to the entire story. Why didn't he get a call? Why wasn't he interviewed? Well, let's find out.
Sometime, but no, it didn't happen. I guess
to testify.
My voice was one of the first ones you hear on the audio transmission, so I did expect to get an interview at some time, but no, it didn't happen. I guess the focus was on Donald Trump.
According to Johnson, no one answered his numerous pleas for help over Capitol Police radio frequencies. Johnson says he, quote, didn't hear anything on the radio. According to Johnson, Yogananda Pittman kept vital information about the protests from frontline officers like him. Pittman was the assistant chief of the department in charge of intelligence operations.
We should have been better prepared that day, and we could have been better prepared that day if the information was disseminated like it was supposed to be.
Once protesters moved inside the building, Johnson's first concern was the safety of senators. His job was to protect them. In rising panic, he called over the radio for direction and assistance. Even now, 2 years later, he is baffled by the response he got.
I was requesting permission to evacuate the Senate side, the Senate chambers, because I had a clear line of sight to get them out the Senate door, and I didn't get permission. The dispatcher called a couple times to see if I can get permission. No response.
With Yogananda Pittman and his other supervisors unresponsive, Johnson says he decided to begin the evacuation of senators himself.
The person that I thought was going to authorize the evacuation didn't do it. I wanted to get those members of Congress out as quickly as I could. That's why I initiated, those evacuations. Me being disciplined, it wasn't as important as not getting the members of Congress and their staff to safety.
Footage we reviewed seems to bolster Johnson's account. The video shows Johnson conducting the evacuation of senators from the chamber. Yet Tarek Johnson was not rewarded for what he did. He was punished. A photo emerged of Johnson wearing a MAGA hat outside the Capitol. That picture cost him his career.
Sometimes I look at it and thank you, God, for blessing me with this hat.
You see that MAGA hat here? It tells you everything you need to know about why the narrative has shifted in the way that it has. This is a hatred for Mr. Trump and everybody who voted for him. This was a political move. So this man is condemned because he's wearing a hat. He was doing it for a reason, though. They didn't care about that. You put on that MAGA hat, make America great again, as if that's one big sin to say that. Some people say, well, when was America ever great? Well, when was America ever not great? It's my question. But nevertheless, They will take something like this and make such a big deal. Fired the guy just because he has on a hat. That is crazy business to me, because it shows you the real hatred where it is really aimed at. Their issue is with Mr. Trump. He's always been. Because Mr. Trump is not in office, and I said this before and I'll say it again. He's not in office, and yet he is causing so much trouble. That's why people actually, I'm becoming more attracted to Trump and wondering why they hate him so much. Because I realize the more these people hate Trump, is the more I wonder why. And the more I wonder why, is the more truth I'm finding out. And I'm realizing the level of deception that is really behind some of this stuff. And I'm like, yo, if they hate Trump this bad, maybe Trump is that good. It was one of those things. But I'm telling you, it's crazy how this fits. Yeah, him wearing a hat was the greatest sin he ever committed here.
Sometimes I look at it and like, thank you, God, for blessing me with this hat. And sometimes I'm like, wow, I wish this hat never came in my life.
A Biden voter, Johnson says he donned the hat in an effort to rescue fellow officers he believed were trapped in the building.
I figured if I had the hat on, it'd be easier for me to navigate my way through the crowd. It was basically self-preservation and de-escalation, and I needed to get up those steps. I couldn't say what would have happened walking through that crowd without it.
But for the crime of wearing a Trump hat, Johnson found himself suspended. Ultimately, he resigned from the force and lost his pension. He now works part-time as a furniture mover. Yogananda Pittman, meanwhile, thrived. 2 days after January 6th, Nancy Pelosi elevated Pittman to acting chief of the Capitol Police. Late last year, Pittman took a high-paying job as the head of security at UC Berkeley, which is right outside Pelosi's congressional district. Berkeley announced Pittman's hiring with unqualified praise for her, quote, steadfast commitment to social justice. Pittman herself boasted about her heroic performance on January 6th. Her department, she said, quote, saved democracy that day. We reached out to Yogananda Pittman for comment, but she didn't get back to us.
Subscribe to the...
Wow. So, I want to say thank you, Tucker. I'm praying for you, Tucker. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for Kevin McCarthy and every other person who is standing for what is right, especially when we are told you can't have an opinion about this or that. They call you fascist, they call you a bigot for believing something that is different than what they want you to believe. Thank God for man who has courage to speak the truth, even in the face of opposition. I appreciate that. I really value that, because today it seems like truth is so under attack. Ray, Tom, you said follow the money, man. Follow the money. Whoever they demonize. Big oil cartel don't want American freedom. They want international schemes and deals. They want pop control. Exactly, rated. Tom rated.